Welcome into Rounding the Bases.
Round the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. It's around the bases. Everybody knows Joe Goldberg. He's a man, goddamn.
And welcome into another episode of Rounding the Bases, presented by Community America Credit Union. I am Joel Goldberg, and I'm really excited about today's podcast. Wait a minute, I should stop myself right now. I think I say that for every podcast, but I don't think I ever have a bad guest, but I do have one today with a very impactful story to tell, and so much to learn, so much inspiration. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Quick shout out before we get going to my friends at Chief of Staff Kansas City. Whether you're in Kansas City or around the country, they are a phenomenal recruiting firm, and I'm really happy to partner with them on multiple aspects of the speaking business, the podcast, and much, much more, and so relevant in today's workplace and what's going on. So you can check them out. They are amazing, making connections that matter. chiefofstaffkc.com. As for this episode, for many, April 13th, 2014 was just another Sunday. Although because of it, I remember exactly where I was, and I remember it being a Sunday. I was sitting in the press box at Target Field in Minnesota covering a Royals Twins game. But for today's guest, it marked the day that her life trajectory was altered forever. Headlines circulated around the world when the open fire of an antisemetic gunman took the lives of her father and 14-year-old son, leaving her as a grieving mother and daughter with a decision to make. And in the face of unimaginable tragedy, Mindy Corporon chose to respond with what she calls courageous kindness, a rare form of bravery that cannot be deterred by pain. She's the former CEO of a successful wealth management firm whose ambition changed in an instant, pivoting from guiding clients financially to guiding the masses towards tolerance and common ground. And my goodness, we all need more of that today. Realizing that sadness and joy actually go hand in hand, Mindy began to rebuild her life. Now she's a successful entrepreneur who uses her platforms as a speaker, author. She had a podcast series going the last couple of years that has ended, but could still be found, of course, like any podcast out there. And the purpose was to channel heartbreak into healing. Despite her soul-shattering loss, she has spent the last 7.5 years making each new day a little better than the one before, uniting people in kindness and shining her light on peace. And I know that I have every kind of guest from every type of field on this podcast, hoping that people will learn, take inspiration. And I think that in terms of kindness and connecting with others, not to mention dealing with grief, that's something that we all come around. That's part of all of our lives. It can make us better. So I'm really happy right now via her home in Florida to welcome into the podcast, Mindy Corporon. Mindy, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Joel. Thank you very much.
Well, it's good to see you, at least right now, virtually. We're recording this. I sometimes like to say this because these podcasts are meant to be evergreen. I want somebody to be able to listen to them in a year, 2 years, 5 years. At the same time, there's some big stuff coming up, and we'll be able to talk about that. So anyone that's listening to this, it'll be released in March as we record in February. Big stuff coming up in April. But I also think that you always have big stuff going on. I mean, you are a driven woman with a purpose, it feels like, from the limited time that I've spent with you. I know we had coffee back here in Kansas City a little while, I think pre-pandemic. But it feels like you're always on the move. You're always driven. You've always got something going on, very purposeful. Am I describing that right? I mean, I'm sure you shut down at some point and chill out, but it seems like you are on the go all the time.
I am. I'm on the go a lot. I shut down when I sleep, and I'm a 7-hour sleeper. So even when we travel, I'm always concerned about whether we have Wi-Fi so I can stay connected. And but when we're on vacation somewhere, I might take an hour or two to like really be on vacation. But I still am always thinking. My brain is always thinking about how can I make something better, and it could be, that we just run into somebody somewhere and I see how something's working and it doesn't look like it's the best way it could be. And I start thinking about this, and my husband will say, please don't open another company. Please don't create something else. But I love that. So yes, I'm always thinking, but I do have my hand in a lot of things that I have created in the last 7.5 years, and some of them are nonprofit and some of them are for profit, and I'm excited to talk about all of them.
Yeah, we'll hit all of those. And I want to briefly touch on the story. I think most of my listeners remember it, and I don't know that there's a need to ask you to relive all of it, although I know that you have many times, other than to say, and I think we all can not walk in your shoes, but understand just the immense amount of pain caused in one senseless death, not let alone two that were immediate family. You know, your father and your son. But I think that the beauty of this journey is where you've gone with it and the way that you have affected and changed so many lives. And I think my first question that I want to ask, and when we'll get into everything that you're doing, is I know there's no switch that can just be flipped. It's not, okay, today's the day. But I would imagine there are gradual steps that were taken, and you grabbed this and you pushed forward. What was that process like? I suspect still going on, to be able to take just the worst of moments and then take them to be able to affect and help other people with their toughest times.
Yes. Well, April 13th was shattering. And so I did lose my father and my oldest son. And interestingly enough, if people don't understand, I found them in the parking lot at the Jewish Community Center. And so it wasn't a phone call from someone telling me that they had been murdered. I found them. I was the person who saw them last alive, and I was the person who found them both. I found my dad already deceased, and then lost his life about 45 minutes after I found him. And so I think that actually helped me in my grieving. I think the fact that I was that person and was there, I think that helped me in moving forward. I think that when something significant happens in our life, we have to take how it was given to us and breathe through it, like literally stop and breathe and think about what has just happened, and then take in as much help as we can from other people around us. So we didn't feed ourselves on our own, literally, for several days. I didn't drive a car for 10 days or more. People came in and breathed life into our house. So I didn't do any of my immediate grieving or living on my own. I had a significant amount of help from friends. My family, we were all grieving. So it was friends. And I talk a lot in the book about Women Who Mean Business, the networking group, who is just this powerful group of women put together by the Kansas City Business Journal. And those women breathed life into our house. And then friends of ours that we had gathered along the way, melded in. What did we do? Well, there was one specific turning point at 6 months after that I remember very clearly, when Lynn, my husband, took me to Nashville, Tennessee. And we had planned the trip before their murders, just a weekend trip with another couple. And he really wanted us to go ahead and go. And so we went. I think we cut it short. I think we went for 2 nights instead of 3 because of Lucas being 12 years old and so much sadness at home. And at that moment, we were in a bar in Nashville. I don't know which one. And they were playing 80s music, which just sounds kind of funny. But they were playing 80s music, and they played Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. And the last time I had heard that song had been in the car with Reet and one of his friends, my son and one of his friends. And we were all belting out the words. I'm an 80s child. So we were all belting out the words to the song, and it had brought me so much joy. So now I'm in this bar in Nashville, Tennessee, and the song came on, and I started singing it, and I started feeling joy, just as few seconds of joy. And then I just crumbled under that. No, I just felt so guilty feeling joy, that I should not feel joy. They would not feel joy. He wouldn't be able to sing the song again. He would never hear the song again. All these emotions, and I started sobbing, and my girlfriend came to my rescue, and I just said, I'm starting to feel again. I'm starting to not be in this fog. So that was at 6 months. Just understanding that I could have a smidgen of joy. It's taken years. About 4 years is when I probably feel like I could put real makeup back on again. I didn't wear makeup or eye makeup for a long time, and I talk about that a lot. I cried every day for 2 years, and then at about 4 years, I realized, okay, you can put makeup back on, and if you cry, you cry. I don't wish it on anyone. I know other people have significant griefs, and everyone's grief is their own. I want to make sure and say that. So many people compare their griefs, and they'll say, oh, well, I lost my dad, but he was older and it was time for him to die, or whatever they might say about a parent who's passing. Everyone has their own grief, and we need to process it ourselves and not compare. I don't think I will ever, and I certainly hope I never have any grief that is as significant as I have already had, though.
Yeah, who would have thought that one moment of getting feel back would come from a Journey song? As a child of the 80s too, I always feel like when I say a child of the 80s, I want to make sure, I mean, I had all white hair. I want to make sure people don't think I was born in like 1980 or something like that.
Right.
I was born in the early 70s, but that was my music too.
Right.
It still is. And funny, yes, to go to Nashville and you can go to Nashville and hear everything, but for the most part, you're not expecting to hear that, and that's what did it. And so I don't know if that was the turning point. I think it's a really interesting and important point to recognize that it's different for everyone. This is not a cookie cutter. Hey, right. So I'm guessing that you've learned along the way that, look, this is what worked for me. This is what didn't work for me, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But I would guess that because of what you have been through, also so publicly and with such grace too, that people are regularly turning to you for comfort, I would imagine. And I'm curious what that feels like. Does that feel good? Is that difficult? Is that empowering? How? Because it's an incredible, I would think, responsibility for people, maybe some, I would assume, that don't even know you, to say, I need to know what Mindy thinks.
Wow, I don't know. I know my son does that. I know my son Lucas says, I need to know what my mom thinks, because I know he'll call me and ask me that. I guess people might say that. That would be nice. That would be flattering. It's what I feel like has happened is I had this tragedy happen, and who I was before the tragedy gave me skills and a skill set to be able to rely on that. And I learned in about 2 or 3 years after their murders that I was going to be leaving my wealth management company and transitioning. And so that would have been another turning point, if you will, that I knew I would be refocusing my life on helping others through grief, and on helping people understand that hate is in the world, unfortunately, and helping people understand that kindness can change a human, that kindness can change someone from having a horrible bad day to having a better day, to maybe not murdering someone, or even not taking their own life, not going to violence. And so that was a different type of turning point. I remember I had that at about 3 a.m, probably in April of 2016. I was working on 7 days, and I was in Reet's old room, and we had turned it into the 7 days office. So I was in his room. I always loved being in there. And I was reading an article about Christianity and Catholicism and Judaism and Islam. And I was learning and soaking all of this information in, and I was immersing myself in understanding why someone would have so much hate to murder. And I felt this, I call it the Holy Spirit. I felt this very interesting feeling come over me and through me. And I felt that the life I had had before, the Boyer Corporon Wealth Management, the taking care of people financially, was now going to be set aside, and I needed to turn and go walk in this other direction. And so maybe that's the initial turning point you were asking about.
Yeah.
That happened in April of 2016 at about 3 a.m. And I did, and I follow it. I pray a lot. I talk to God a lot. I listen a lot, and I really do work to follow where I feel like I'm supposed to be led.
Well, you moved on to this new world of helping companies. I love that your husband said, please, no more companies. And of course, I think he knows the way you're wired. So I don't know what kind of say he has in that or not, but I know that you're, as I said at the start, you're busy and you're ambitious and you're a creator. So let's talk about those companies. And well, we can go in any direction. I thought maybe we'd start with 7 days and dig a little bit deeper into that, which has really become just an incredible phenomenon. I think, and I remember the early days of it, and you look all over and people have t-shirts and people are involved in this and people are involved in that. But let's talk about that and how it started and where it's gone.
Great, thank you. Yes, so 7 days is now the name of our foundation as well. So 7 days is an event, and it's the name of our foundation. The event is 7 days, Make a Ripple, Change the World. And in the last 7 years, we've had 7 public-facing events in the month of April. So they were murdered in April, and so our activities have happened in April. They all follow themes, and our themes are love, discover, others, connect, you, go, and onward. And so each of these themes have different tactics associated with them and actions associated. It's all wrapped in kindness. And we also, our board had a great strategy meeting this October. I know you interviewed Alana Mueller on your podcast, and she is on our board, and she led our strategy meeting with the help of John Prutzman, who is a coach at Terracon. And so they oversaw this for us in October, and we spent a lot of time focusing on not changing our purpose, but tightening up our purpose. And so we readjusted our purpose statement. And 7 days purpose is to overcome hate by promoting kindness and understanding through education and dialogue. And we are very specifically focusing on any kind of activities that we have when funds are given to us and donated or sponsors happen. We are showcasing the importance of kindness and activities of kindness in schools K through 12. So it's our plan to create resources for schools in the social emotional learning category and put them in the hands of teachers and students so that they can be taught kindness. Because, Joel, there are people out there teaching hate. There are groups and factions and whatever you want to call them, they're teaching hate. So why would we not teach kindness? And so there are other groups that are doing what we're doing, and we may partner with some of them, but that is what we're focusing on. Specifically in April this year, a very good friend of yours, Dayton Moore, is going to be the award winner of our Ripple of Kindness Award. He is our second honoree. And Trent Greene, who I'm guessing is also a friend of yours,
Yep.
Was honored last year. So Trent Greene has been a friend and follower of 7 days for years. A couple of years in a row, he helped at the walk. So he was the MC and helped Krista DeBille on two different years. And then he and his wife have done so much in the community. So we provided and honored Trent last year, 2021, with our Ripple of Kindness Award, and Dayton Moore is going to receive that. This is all happening on April 13th. I have learned that I need to be extremely busy and focused on April 13th. If I am not doing something engaged with other people or helping other people, I'm just pretty much angry all day long, and it's not a good anger. It's a very horrible anger. So we're going to focus on kindness on April 13th. The Church of the Resurrection is going to host us. We're expecting about 250 to 300 people. It's going to be a breakfast. So we're excited. We're very excited to have sponsors. We've got some really good names coming in, and we're getting ready to start publishing those on social media. So that's our kindness breakfast on April 13th. And then on April 24th, the World War I It's always hard to say. On April 24th, the World War I Museum and Memorial will host us for our kindness walk on a Sunday, April 24th. And we're building the program for what that looks like right now. Our kindness youth leadership team are high school students, and they're helping us put everything together. So Joel, in between April 13th and April 24th, are 7 themes, are the themes of 7 days. And April 13th starts love. And so in our school districts, in all of our local school districts and in our community, we want everyone to adopt love, discover, others, connect, you, go, and onward. And all the resources are on our website.
Couple thoughts. One, well, all 3 of the people you mentioned are friends. I should add Krista in as a friend as well. And got to know her over the years during her time in media. And those paths will always cross, but when the Royals were doing what they were doing, she was, showing up, doing the news from Kauffman Stadium and all that kind of stuff. So those are 3 amazing people. Obviously, worked with Dayton since I got here in 2008. I should say that I've known Trent. I'm not too close since 1999, because when I worked in St. Louis, I've told him this before, I was the sideline reporter in the game that he got injured, which opened up the career trajectory of Kurt Warner and his story, and then Trent eventually coming to Kansas City and all that. So Trent, I know when I've told him that when we've been at events in recent years, has blamed me for his injury in that game. He goes, "Oh, that was your fault." But Trent and Julie, 2 of the most giving people in this community, no doubt. And which leads me to the question about, I know you said that when the tragedy happened back in 2014, that everyone within the community, friends, that they were there to breathe life into you and your family. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like we always hear about those stories, when someone is dealing with the worst of times, there's usually someone. This is the kindness that you're talking about, which I believe kindness trumps hate. There's more kindness in the world than hate. And I hope that that's what'll always win. I hope. But you saw that reaction from the community to pick you up, to breathe life into you. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But then you see beyond the friends, beyond the people that you know in the community, how much Dave Moore told me when I got here that culture, I'm getting a little off topic, but not really, culture is not just the team. It's not just the players. It's everybody in the organization. It's the fans. It's not just Kansas City. It's the region. And I suspect that that's what you've seen with 7 days. And I was curious about that, kind of how you've seen it grow and the passion that people have had for something that you created right from the beginning.
Right. Well, it's called Make a Ripple, Change the World. And people are taking it on their own, which is fantastic. And they are making ripples. I'll stick with Dayton Moore for just a moment. Because the murders happened on the campus at the Jewish Community Center, that is why the Royals selected the J for baseball camps. So there are specific baseball camps held at the J because of the shooting that happened there. And so, they went right there that first summer and held baseball camps there on campus. There, I can't talk specific. I won't remember some of them that I want to talk about, but I know that there's a couple at a local church who started a special grief program in their church because of 7 days. I know that there are different things that different groups of people have started. I know that there are Methodist women and there are Islamic women and there are Jewish women who all meet together because of the shooting that happened and because of 7 days. So I know that the way I answered the first media questions, the way my family and my brothers and I responded in our first interviews really helped set a trajectory for everyone to do something good, to make something good come out of that. And I think that always makes our world better. So, and I will tell you, I can look at, I am not the only person who has had a tragedy and then turned it around for good. There are a lot of people that I know, and I interviewed many of them on my podcast. Real Grief, Real Healing is the name of my podcast, and it is on YouTube forever. But I interviewed them, and people who have tragedies happen to them and can find something good out of it and can create something good, it's called post-traumatic growth. And it is part of the healing process. And so I wasn't the only one injured that day. I wasn't the only victim. Kansas City was a victim. Overland Park was a victim. I mean, we were all victims that day. The fact that this person came in and thought that that was okay to do that, So everyone wanted to find their own piece of how to heal, and I'm really, really thankful for so many people that that did and do carry on that ripple of kindness and are changing the world.
It is the power of kindness and what community can do when they come together. And we've had so many differences nowadays, whether it's the politics or whatever it is, COVID and yet we do maybe not all, most of us have that kindness in us. So it's like, to me, that's the commonality, right? I mean, can't we put aside differences and at least bond over that kindness? Maybe that's easier said than done, but to me, that's something that I would think that I could relate to anyone that might have different viewpoints than me.
Yeah, and I learned to ask, I would tell you and your listeners, I've learned to ask questions with curiosity rather than being maybe defensive or too questioning. I'm very questioning anyway. I have always in my years of experience, professional and personal, come across as I ask too many questions, I get personal too quickly, I might share too much. And so those traits are still with me, but I do ask questions out of curiosity, and I will use that word. I will say, I am curious. Can you tell me why you believe this? Can you tell me why you just said that? I've also become much more aware of when I say something and make a mistake. I make mistakes. I say things wrong or that might sound racist. It hurts me. It pains me when I say something from my upbringing in white Oklahoma, where I grew up, in this rural town that really meant well and loved people. But I learned things. I learned phrases that are not helpful to people of color. And when I go back and think about what I've said, or if I say something and stick my foot in my mouth, I tend to stop myself now. I'm mature enough. I feel confident in myself enough, and all that crap happened to me. So I feel like I have a different platform, and I will pause and say, I am sorry I said that. Can I start over? Just say, I'm sorry. That came out very badly, and I would like to start over. And I think if we gave ourselves permission to do that, and gave ourselves permission that I said something wrong and I want to correct it right now or correct it quickly, that makes me feel better. I want a clean heart. I don't want a heart that feels pain overnight or for hours because I mistakenly or unintentionally hurt someone's feelings. I want to intentionally not hurt someone's feelings, and I want to intentionally offer them courageous kindness.
That's beautiful, and just a reminder, like we can learn every single day, and we can grow and learn from each other. I had one more question before we move on in terms of 7 days, because it's not, and you already talked about a lot of the dynamics and complexities and the moving parts. I mean, this is not just, as we said, one walk a year or one event or this event. There are so many, if I'm describing it right, so many arms and legs and limbs to this thing in the best of ways. And one of the ones that really stands out to me so much is just the impact that you're having in leadership with the younger generation too. I mean, that's where it all starts. And you see that with Dayton Moore and his passions with Urban Youth Academy and so many of his endeavors here in the city. He's not the only one, but I think we all know too, like, you got to start with the kids. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about that and the kindness youth leadership and all the different avenues for these acts of kindness and this importance of leadership, beginning with the younger generation and how important that's been.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So I'm going to be very vulnerable and tell you how it started, honestly, okay? So Reet, my son, was ripped away from me so violently and drastically. I was not finished parenting. And so we had Lucas, who's 12, and we were pouring all of our parenting onto this poor 12-year-old who was so, sad. And all of a sudden he's an only child. And I wasn't finished parenting. And I wanted so badly to have that 14-year-old young man around me again. I wanted students around me. I needed that. I mentored him and his friends. And so selfishly, I said, well, anything that I do, I'm going to be mentoring students along the way. And I called it a youth advisory board. And I was so lucky, excuse me, I was so lucky that a young man named Jake Goldman, who was a junior in high school, I don't think he personally had been bullied. He's Jewish, and there had been bullying at his school. And then the murders happened, and he had just had enough of the racism at his school and bullying at his school. And he found me. And he came to me and he said, Ms. Corporon, I'd really like to have a walk, or I'd like to do something. And I tell you what, I said, oh my gosh, you can run my youth advisory board and we can create this. So he oversaw the youth advisory board his junior year and his senior year. And we had about 10 students his first year and maybe 12 or 13 the second year. And now it's called the Kindness Youth Leadership Team. It's by application. And we have about 60 young students apply every year. They're high school students. And Jill Anderson oversees them. She is our only employee at 7 Days, and she oversees them. And they've done video for us. They do social media. They help us plan activities. They're on committees. They're calling about catering. They work with the World War I Museum. They work with Church of the Resurrection. They are learning about community, kindness, philanthropy, and then they're taking this message into their schools. So you can tell that it just brings me so much happiness and passion to keep the students in my life. So that is my selfish reason. Now I will turn the mirror around and say to the rest of humanity, when we get to be adults, we tend to not want to change our minds. Right. So I don't need to try to tell a bunch of adults, hey, be kind today, and it might change someone's life. But I'm going to go back to the fact that some people are teaching our children hate. There are people who are purposely teaching our children hate. And so we are focusing on teaching our children kindness.
I love it. For anyone that wants to learn more about any aspects of 7 Days, the website, really simple, give7days.org, give7days.org, all spelled out the way you would expect it to. Let's go to one of the other businesses and endeavors, which will be Workplace Healing. Tell me about that.
Thank you. Okay, so Workplace Healing was a same kind of brainchild type thing that happened. I had realized on that 3 a.m. morning in April of 2016 that I was going to need to leave my wealth management firm. And this is all very emotional, spiritual. My passion was changing, and I knew I was going to be walking away from that. Then fast forward late 2017, I was asked by a local businessman about an employee of his. She had lost her husband. And this local businessman wanted to know, really, when would she be back emotionally? He said, and so I answered some questions, or I asked him, when did it happen? How long has it been? And he was letting me know that he didn't know what to do or what to say. And he wanted her back. We want our people back. I know my company wanted me back. So when I was leaving the wealth management company, I thought, well, I might speak, I might be a speaker. I might write a book. I don't know, but I need to channel myself and my passion in this other direction. And I started working on Workplace Healing, and then I found a business partner, Lisa Cooper. So she and I are business partners, and we opened it legitimately in 2018, in late 2018. And initially it was presentations to businesses of all sizes, companies. We got hired locally by several really prominent companies who were very thankful for that. They trusted us to come in and talk to their employees about what to do when a team member, an employee, suffers a loss. And we call those losses life disruptions because it doesn't have to be a death. It could be divorce. It could be caregiving. There's so many things that take us off our mark, right? That really, scatter us and shatter us and take us away from what we're doing in our normal daily lives. It's called life happens. And so we were doing these presentations, but the feedback we kept getting was, well, what happens when this activity or this event really happens and they have a question for us, like, where are Mindy and Lisa going to be? Are we going to be available at 2 a.m. when they get the phone call that their vice president's spouse died? How are they going to react to that? So in 2021, Joel, we transitioned to a software. And now I'm so proud to tell you that Workplace Healing is a software company. And we built a software platform called the Human Recovery Plan, because businesses have business recovery plans, but we wanted to build a human recovery plan. And what we do is we help, we help employers support grieving employees in an easy to use 24/7 on demand way. And it's personalized, it's unique to their employee, and then it's a tactical plan. It's based on head and heart based tactics, and then the employer, the manager, supervisor, care team, they put it into action. And by acknowledging their employee, they are 56% more likely to keep that employee on board and to build loyalty and to offer empathy. So we're helping employers build their empathy muscle.
Which is everything. It's one of the topics actually that I include in my culture speech to all the companies that I talk to, because when you can show empathy, when you can, and I always view empathy or describe it as attempting to walk in someone else's shoes, trying to understand their point of view, trying to understand their life a little bit better. It builds such stronger teams and trust and everything. And so congratulations on that. I want to let everyone know that if you want to learn more about anything with Workplace Healing, it's workplacehealing.com. And final thought too is, I think some of the beauties of the journey, right? You couldn't envision that this would now be a software company and that you'd be getting into businesses and helping them with grief and helping the communication and the trust and everything that companies want.
Right. That is our goal. Our goal is to increase productivity at companies. We want to increase confidence in managers, because saying nothing at all is not the right thing to do. And we want to give them, and we are giving them, the right content from a head-based perspective and a heart-based perspective on how to reintegrate their employee back into their workplace.
I was thinking, as you're talking about that, about a podcast I heard the other day from Brene Brown. You and I were talking about her in advance. If Brene's listening, I don't think she is to this one. You got to have Mindy on your podcast. But she was talking about, so often we say, I don't know if I should ask about this. I don't know. But if there's something going on, by not asking, it's still going on. What was her point was that, we all want to shy away from it oftentimes and maybe play it safe or not to delve into it, but it's still there, right? I mean, it's not, by ignoring it, it's not going away.
It is not going to go away. And so, I can use the analogy that when someone has died, when Dad and Reet were murdered and they're deceased, they're dead, they're not coming back. It's not going away ever. Like, that is not going away. And so that's my new reality. And when you are new to this reality with a team member and a coworker, an employee, and you are the one that needs to talk to them, they are going to interface with you, and you don't know what to say or do, then log into Workplace Healing, and we will give you exactly the tool and the plan, and you can build a human recovery plan for your hurting employee. And that's what I didn't have. Boyer Corporon did the best job they could to reintegrate me, but they didn't have training, and so we are providing training. The other thing that's very specific and different about Workplace Healing than other grieving, other companies that help with grief, is that we are pointing all of our education and training to the manager, the supervisor, the care team, the HR team. It's not pointed at the griever. We're not asking the hurting person to make a change or do anything different or tell people what they need or what they don't need. We're giving a tactical plan to the managers so they can take action.
Again, the website, workplacehealing.com. I got to get to my baseball theme questions, in part because, well, one, because I always do, two, because you spent some time thinking about this.
I
don't
did.
know. I don't know how much time my guests spend thinking about it. Probably some a long time, some just think of it. I don't know. But you told me, you were digging down on this one, which I really appreciate. So let's get going on it. What's the biggest home run that you have hit in terms of your professional career?
Okay, so you're going to laugh because I have some caveats to all of this. So I was like, well, what is my professional career? Because I co-founded a wealth management company. I've authored a book. I've now started a software company, and I created a nonprofit that has an annual event going into its 8th year. So I'm going to say, though, in the whole span, it's so hard to pick. So in the whole span of my career in that facet, I think that my home run was authoring my memoir. That's my home run because that was for my dad and Reed. That's been my home run.
What was that process like for you too?
It was more crying. It was cathartic. It was healing. It was helpful. It was educational. It was scary. All of those things. It was a lot.
Healing a Shattered Soul, My Faithful Journey of Courageous Kindness After the Trauma and Grief of Domestic Terrorism by Mindy Corporon. And, by the way, you could change your answer if there's a new home run. There's so many of them, and there'll be more, right? I mean, that's the beauty of this. And I'm not holding you to anything, but that's certainly a very, very worthwhile, meaningful home run. How about a swing and a miss, and what did you learn from it?
Okay, so the swing and the miss, again, I spent a lot of time thinking about what a swing and a miss is. So a swing and a miss is a strike. It's not an out. It's like when I saw it, a swing and a miss, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so detrimental. But it's not. It's not detrimental. When you swing and you miss, then you readjust, right? You readjust because there are going to be more balls thrown at you if in the baseball, right? You're going to get more.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so I had to think about a swing and a miss is not an out, and then put that into perspective for myself. So my swing and my miss is starting the foundation too early after the murders. I was so focused on doing something that I started the foundation so quickly. I'm great with 7 days and the activity, the event of 7 days, but the foundation itself was called Faith Always Wins. And I started Faith Always Wins and really pushed it too early. And what I learned from that is take more time. Just take more time. There's this whole premise that when something bad happens in your life, a death, literally, a job loss, etc., you need to step back and take some time. And I just stepped in. I kept stepping into things, and that would be my swing and my miss. And I have learned to calm myself down a little bit more.
I've never heard of the swing and miss thought of that way, but it makes. I mean, I think in my head I always thought about it being an out, but like in baseball, sometimes we talk about productive outs. It's a little bit different. That's making it out maybe for the good of your team. It wasn't that, but it was more of, okay, sometimes you mess up, or sometimes you end up making it out. But did you learn from it? Where did you go from it? But you challenge me to think a little bit differently too. Like it doesn't have to be an out. It could just be a miss. And okay, now adjust. Do what you need. So there's a lot there in terms of adjusting, pivoting, of reading the moment and taking something from it. So, and then the last one is small ball. What are the little things that add up to the results for you?
Yeah, so I am chuckling about this and laughing because it doesn't sound very professional at all the things that I wrote out. So for me to be great at small ball in any kind of corporate or professional sense, I have to first focus on my own self, on my own small ball. So I wrote down some things. I want to make sure I get all of them. Breathing. Okay. Sometimes are you working and you realize you aren't breathing? I'm like, was I just holding my breath? So I have to tell myself take a breath and like breathe deeply. So breathe, like thinking about my breath and breathing. Prayer. So prayer for myself and prayer for others. So I pray for myself. I pray for guidance. I pray for other people to have guidance. And I pray for others significantly. Journaling. I am a journaler. That is how I wrote the memoir, but I have always been a journaler. I write out my thoughts and my feelings, and that helps release a lot of tension, and it also opens my mind up. Exercise. I have to exercise in some fashion, and being with family and friends. So that was important. But all of those together help me. When I do those, they help me trust myself. They help me trust. They help me trust myself that I've done all these things, and whatever I've gathered from my meditation or my journaling or my breathing or my prayer, that's where I'm moving. That's where I'm moving forward. And so all those things together are my small ball that help me trust myself. And then I move that into my corporate life.
That's so good. Oh,
thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for thinking so deeply about it, because I think there's so much in there for people. Like, those are all things, and maybe not everybody's going to work out. Although I've finally gotten better with that, thank you. And took me my whole lifetime, but that's I'll share this. And I think I mentioned it before that my business coach, I probably shared it in a podcast or two. My business coach has a saying. I think it's the non-negotiables set the standard. And those are all non-negotiables. Like, this is, I have to do these things, which is small ball. And so, like, working out, if that's non-negotiable, it becomes your habit. It becomes the standard. And breathing, I know, like, people consider, oh, well, literally, of course you're breathing. But sometimes you got to just exhale. Sometimes you got to, and do one of those. And I think there's deeper meaning in that too, of like, when we get so locked in or so stressed or maybe it's grief, or maybe whatever it is, that sometimes, if you had that moment where you're like, because I had this once where I was in spring training where I looked up, and after 5 days, I'm like, I never even noticed those mountains up there. It's not that I didn't know they didn't exist. I was so distracted or focused that it was like, that's the breathing part to me, is like very, being intentional with that moment.
And I'll add on to what you just said. So someone sent me a card. I know who it was. A friend and client sent me a card after their murders, and it said, "Look up." And so, look up is another small ball. So all those little things. So when I do those things, I'm better. I'm a better Mindy. If I don't do those things, then I don't show up well. So all of those things have to happen for me well. And I didn't say work out. I just said exercise. So
sure.
It could be yoga. It could be walking 15 minutes. It could be, something. But those things make me a better Mindy and help me make better decisions and help me trust the decisions that I'm going to make. So that's why I listed them as my small ball.
By the way, I'm not like some workout fiend or anything. To me, if that means going for a hike or a walk or whatever, just something every day, just something. Sometimes it might just be 10 minutes. Anyway, that's a different discussion. I've got 4 final questions that I want to throw at you. You don't know what's coming here, but it's what I call rounding the bases. But we'll start with a fun one, going way back to the cheerleading days. OU and the Chiefs. I don't have pictures; they're probably out there or whatever. But I got to ask you about that. That's a different lifetime ago, but not a whole lot of people get a chance to say that they did that.
So you're asking, so I was an Oklahoma cheerleader. Yes. So I cheered at the University of Oklahoma, 4 seasons. I cheered when Barry Switzer was there. So for those people who remember and know fondly or not, Barry Switzer, I was there for Barry Switzer, and that was great. And then, yes, I moved to Kansas City and knew some cheerleaders with a company called International Cheerleading Foundation. And they were that's who was running the Chiefs cheerleaders at the time. And I tried out, and I was a Chiefs cheerleader for 2 seasons. And one of those seasons was when Joe Montana and Marcus Allen were here in Kansas City. Yeah, I know, pretty hot stuff.
That's pretty good names.
It was fun.
Good. Okay, the second question I want to ask you, it's my shout out, it's my homage to a group that I will never, ever, ever, ever be in. You mentioned them earlier, but I have a lot of friends in there. The Women Who Mean Business group.
You will not make that group.
Not making the cut. I hear about the trip every year to Mexico, but the thing is like, it is such a collection of awesome and powerful go-getters in every type of field. So you talked about community, but I'm wondering just what that group has meant to you, because you are and were one of those, you know, powerful women that was incredibly successful, is incredibly successful in the business world. Yet I know that there's an element that goes beyond just being successful in business in terms of community that I think we all want.
It brings tears to my eyes to talk about these women. I like to tell people we are a whole group of A-type personalities, and you wouldn't know it when we all get together. We are so loving and kind to one another and sharing, and they breathe life into my family. That is what I would say. They breathe life into my family. I would also tell you what I think is, if the Women Who Mean Business were presented with a problem, and let's say we were presented with what to do with immigration, big problem, right? What if we were presented with a problem that big? Our group put together could solve that. I mean, we talked about that in Mexico this year. I went on the trip this year, and it was amazing as ever, the new women who came on, and the women who've been there for years. And it's just a great group of women who care so much about Kansas City and so much about the world. You know, now I'm in Florida, and other people are in Arizona, and some people have moved to Texas, and some people have moved to California, but we care about the world around us and the people around us, and everyone wants to make a difference in the world. Everyone in that group.
I know so many people, and so I can't list them all off. Obviously, it's a large group. I just hear about the trip every year, sometimes in between cracks from Dr. Michelle Robin, and on and on. We've all been there. So anyway, I wanted to go there because I don't know if there's that type of thing in other places. If there is, then great. But it's such a unique, awesome thing, and I'm always so excited to hear about everything. I mean, I'm pretty sure I hear about a very small, tiny amount, not a big portion of it, but you know what I mean. It's just very inspiring.
I am so blessed, and I know everyone who's in the organization is very blessed, and we thank the Kansas City Business Journal and their organization so for their years and years. Joyce Hayhow was solely instrumental, from what I know, of gathering us together initially and carrying it on, and now it's Stacy Prosser, and we really thank them so much for allowing us opportunities to be together and to make a huge difference in our world around us.
Well, this episode is airing in March, which is Women's Appreciation Month, and as I look at my calendar as we're recording this right now, the only male that's going to be on this show twice a week throughout all of March is me. So it seems appropriate, but we could talk about that group 12 months a year. And so I just wanted to take a chance to highlight that. Let's move on to my third question. And if this is, I don't know that it'll be an uncomfortable one, but I just think it's an important one to ask. And if you don't want to go there, that's fine. But there's so much attention on what happened to your family and certainly to your father and to Reet that, you know, he had a younger brother that is maturing and becoming a young adult, and I know in college and all of that. And I'm sure a lot of people ask, but you know, how's Lucas doing? I mean, he's gone through things that most kids would not have to go through, but yet I know he's got an incredible support system, and it's got to be just the joy of your life to watch him growing up.
It is, and you can ask about Lucas all day long. Yes, Lucas was 12 years old at the time of the murders, so he lost his grandfather and his brother and became an only child all at the same time. He is flourishing. He is a sophomore at the University of Arkansas. He is all in. He's a Pi Kappa Alpha, and he is all in with the fraternity and classes. He is really loving life. We are so thankful. Many of the women and Women Who Mean Business helped parent him along the way, and they look at him in that way, and I'm so thankful that they did that for us, and they continue to step in. So let's see, how is Lucas? Well, another way for people to know about Lucas is to read my book. There are 2 chapters spent on Lucas Lowson, on the challenges that we face, the challenges that he faced. We did leave Overland Park when he was a sophomore in high school, and it was his idea. It was his request to leave, and he's the reason that we moved to Florida in 2018. And I didn't want to, but I did for him. And so we did it and we made it work. And I'm very thankful that we did. So yeah, you can ask about him all day long. He's awesome. I get to see him. I know we're recording now in February, so I'm going to go see him for Pike Moms Weekend, February 18th.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And he is not the only sophomore at Arkansas in terms of people that we have mentioned. Dayton Moore's son is a sophomore there as
That's
well, right. and one of the better baseball players in the country. Okay, last question, the walk-off. It's a I don't know, it's a heavy one, but an important one. And this is not I know there's no one size fits all to the discussion of grief, but what's a good starting place? I mean, we all go through some form of grief. If we're not going through it right now, well, in all likelihood, we're all going through it forever in some form or another, and there'll be more coming. There just will. I mean, I don't want to think about that, but it will. Where do you tell people to start when I know it's different for everyone, but where's a starting point to start again? How do you advise people on how to begin the process?
And so let me make sure I understand the question. You're asking about a griever in particular, not someone to help a griever, but someone who's grieving, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, although Mindy, we could look at both ends of that.
Well, I just wanted to confirm because there are different answers. So as a griever, if you're newly grieving, well, and I would agree with you, everyone has experienced grief now because of COVID. So everyone knows what it is like to have your life changed in that instant. You know, when the world shut down that weekend, March 13th, March 14th, everyone understood to some extent what it was like to have your life completely changed in that moment. And so that is grief. Well, to feel it, I actually say to people, when you feel that sadness, so many times we don't want to feel that pain. We don't want to feel sadness. We don't want to cry. You know, that lump in your throat starts coming and you're like, oh, I don't want to feel that, or that pain in your chest starts happening. It's real, and it's a real feeling, and God gave it to us because we're supposed to feel it. So what I'd say to people when they first have grief is to figure out a safe environment. Is it your shower? Is it your bedroom? Is it someone else's, room in the house? Is it, something? And for me, it was Wesley Chapel. Go there and cry. Go there. Find a place where you can have your feelings and you can let them out. And then find the aspect of what works for you. Is it walking? Is it walking in nature? Is it journaling? Is it meditating? Is it yoga? Is it riding a bike really fast? Is it boxing? Is it kickboxing? Find an outlet that helps you process the cortisol that your body is actually creating, because it is a physical sensation, and grief does hurt. Grief actually does hurt your heart. There are medical proof that your heart aches, and it's the endorphins that are created. So I say to people, you need to feel it. You're going to feel it. So allow yourself to feel it and then find a way to process it.
Great advice. And that's why I wanted to ask. And again, it's different for everyone, but what a important starting point, and one that I think we all can learn for. We went a little bit long, but it was worth every single minute of it. There's a lot for people to know, beginning with 7 days. The website is give7days.org. On there, you'll see the website and everything that's coming up in April. Those key words: love, discover, others, connect, youth, go, onward. April 13th to April 21st. And then April 24th, got stuff going on. And then also workplacehealing.com. Every company out there, every executive that is listening should check that out and see what they can do to make their workplace a better one, a safer one, a closer one. And of course, the book as well, which you can get on Amazon, for sure on Amazon. I think probably other places too. Healing a Shattered Soul: My Faithful Journey of Courageous Kindness After the Trauma and Grief of Domestic Terrorism. Mindy, it's been enlightening. It's been powerful. I knew it would be. I'm so grateful for your time, your candor, and everything that you're doing to make the world a kinder place. We all need that. Thanks so much for spending time.
Joel, thank you so much for your courageous kindness.